The League, in partnership with 1011 Now, is hosting 2 candidate forums to provide an opportunity for voters to hear directly from the candidates on important local issues. This would not be possible without the support of our community partners. I'd like to recognize Dr. Dwayne Mays and his wife Geraldine from the NAACP Lincoln branch, who is one of our partners. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political nonprofit organization of 160 local women and men whose mission is to empower voters and defend democracy. We neither support nor oppose candidates or political parties at any level of government. We engage in robust voter registration and voter education in advance of every election. For more information about the League of Women Voters of Lincoln-Lancaster County, or to join, please visit our website at lincolnleague.org. Tonight we're going to spend the first half an hour with the 2 candidates from the Lincoln Airport Authority Board of Directors, who will be introduced by our moderator, Danielle Shank. Danielle is the streaming anchor and evening digital executive producer of 1011 Now. We will start the forum with each candidate providing a 90-second opening statement, followed by 90-second responses to the questions asked. Shortly before 7 o'clock, each candidate will provide a 60-second closing statement. You were offered an index card on the way in this evening, so you may submit a question for consideration. Please legibly print your question on the index card and hold it up in the air. One of our volunteers will retrieve it. Here in the front row, we have our timekeepers, League members Scott Larson and Marion Day. They will hold up signs informing the candidates of the time remaining for their opening and closing statements, as well as their answers to the questions. At 7 p.m., we will end the forum with the Airport Authority candidates and bring in the 6 candidates for at-large positions on the Lincoln City Council. We will follow the same format of opening and closing statements and accepting questions for consideration for the City Council candidates. So we may get as many questions answered as possible. We ask you to refrain from applause until the candidates have concluded their closing statements. Of course, we also ask you to refrain from any flash photography and request that you turn off or silence your cell phones. Because the League of Women Voters of Lincoln-Lancaster County is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, you are prevented from taking any video clips of this forum. The candidate forum is being live streamed and recorded by 1011 Now, and the recording will be available within 24 hours. Viewers can watch the events on 1011now.com or through the 1011 Now app available on smartphones and streaming platforms including Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV, and Android TV. Now let me introduce our moderator, Danielle Shank. Before joining 1011 Now, Danielle spent about 3 years as a reporter for NTV before becoming an anchor for KSNB Local 4 in Hastings. Danielle's passion and active engagement with the news has been evident since high school in Polk, Nebraska, and continued during her college years at Hastings College. Danielle joined 1011 Now in 2023 and assumed her current position of streaming anchor and evening digital executive producer in July 2024. Let me turn it over to Danielle.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to tonight's candidate forum for the Lincoln Airport Authority Board. As Jean said, my name is Danielle Shank, and I'll be serving as your moderator for this event. We appreciate you joining us to hear from the candidates seeking election for this important position. The Lincoln Airport Authority plays a crucial role in overseeing the airport's operations, expanding airline services, and ensuring that Lincoln's airport remains a key economic driver for our community. Tonight's forum is an opportunity for you, the voters, to learn more about the candidates, their priorities, and their vision for the future of our airport. As Jean mentioned, each candidate will have the opportunity to respond to a series of questions. Responses will be timed to ensure fairness, and we ask that both candidates remain respectful to each other and the time limits. So each candidate will now have a minute and a half to introduce themselves and explain why they're running for the Lincoln Airport Authority Board. And make sure you have the mic a little bit close to your mouth when you're talking, similar to this. We'll start with Ms. Vanessa Emlich, a current member of the Airport Authority Board.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I wanted to start off by thanking the League of Women Voters and 1011 for hosting this forum, and for all of you for being here and taking an interest in the Airport Authority. It's not always the top item on the campaign on the election season, so thank you for being here and being interested. Because the airport is very important to our community. It's what connects us to our family and friends across the country and the world. It helps to support local businesses and make sure that Lincoln thrives. I was appointed to the board in September of 2023. And since being on the board, I've worked with my fellow board members to focus on prioritizing commercial air service, maximizing the industrial park, and making sure that we are supporting our general aviation and military partners as well as our business tenants. I have over 20 years of experience in leadership, compliance, strategic planning, and I take a data-driven, business-minded approach with everything that I do. I would be honored to earn your vote on May 6th. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Emlich. And now turning to Mr. Tom Trumbull, a Nebraska Aeronautics Commissioner. It should be.
Testing, yep. Hi there, I'm Tom Trumbull, and welcome to the forum. It's a little bit new for me to see all these faces staring at me. So anyway, my roots are in Lincoln. I've lived in Lincoln since 1967. My wife and I attend St. Patrick's Church up in Havelock. My parents were married in St. Mary's Church. My grandparents were married in St. Patrick's Church in 1893. My wife Sharon and I have 6 children, 8 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. I'm an engineer graduating from the University of Nebraska in 1972. I'm a registered professional engineer in the states of Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, and Missouri. I've attended the FAA University in Oklahoma City, studying airport design. I attained my pilot's license in 1972. I'm an instrument-rated commercial pilot with 3,400 hours of flight time. I received the FAA Master Pilot Award in 2022. The last 20 years of my career, I've designed airports and administrated FAA airport improvement grants. I've been a member of the Nebraska Aeronautics Commission for 6 years.
All right, thank you so much for your introductions, everyone. And we'll now move on to the question portion. Each candidate will have up to 90 seconds to respond. So let's begin with our first question. Mr. Trumbull, what do you think are the top 3 issues facing the Lincoln Airport Authority, and how do you plan to address them?
Well, top of my mind is to make the airport financially stable. I think that's top priority, to see us utilize taxpayer dollars in the most useful way. And for many years, most of you can probably remember, the airport functioned on its own financially without the assistance of taxpayer dollars. And I'd like to see us get back to that. There are some challenges. We need to do what we can to keep the air service that we have and to develop new routes. Our airport is really our only access to public transportation in Lincoln, Nebraska. You take the airport away and we're forced to go somewhere else to find public transportation. So that's pretty much it.
All right. Ms. Emlich, I will now ask you the same question. What do you think are the top 3 issues facing the Lincoln Airport Authority, and how do you plan to address them?
So I think the top 3 are that we have limited commercial air service. We have an underutilized industrial park, and we have a growing need to maintain our critical infrastructure. So for our air service, I've been working with our airport team, our air service consultant, to make sure that we have a smart, data-driven strategy to recruit new airlines that make sense for Lincoln, as well as routes that we can sustain. For our industrial park, we've just engaged a real estate broker to help us to expand our leasing strategies and bring revenue and new industry into industrial park. And then for our critical infrastructure, we just need to make sure that we're investing in a decent airport. We need to make sure our runway is up to standard. That's why we are investing in our runway project. And if we don't, then we risk losing our ability to function as a state-of-the-art airport. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the second question now. We'll go back to you, Ms. Emlich. What lessons should the Airport Authority take away from the Redway experience, and how can the board ensure more successful and sustainable airline partnerships in the future?
So the Redway initiative was ambitious, but it was full of challenges and ultimately didn't work in the end. I was appointed to the board just after Redway ended, and we took some time to take a look at where we could learn from that project. Ultimately, there were a lot of routes that were added to Lincoln, I think about 7 different ones all at once. That's incredibly hard to sustain. So we took a look at that. We took the lessons learned. We built a strategy that looked at long-term sustainability, making sure that we are incorporating our community stakeholders. We formed our Air Service Advisory Council that provides some advice from our business owners and various people from the community to help us give insight on what we should be focusing on. And then also making sure that we are making fiscally responsible choices when it comes to pursuing the airlines that we'll bring into Lincoln.
All right, thank you. Now, Mr. Trumbull, what lessons should the Airport Authority take away from the Redway experience, and how can the board ensure more successful and sustainable airline partnerships in the future?
Well, I'll start out with my mother taught me to not say anything bad about anything. If you can't say anything good about it, don't say anything. But with that being said, obviously Redway could have done better. In the future, I think the Airport Authority board members need to be more hands-on in those types of situations. We should make sure that the airline that's applying to run new routes is a real airline, has financial stability, and can handle the startup costs and the operational costs of the routes. That being said, I'm not totally against the subsidy idea for a startup route, but it needs to be used correctly. It's not startup money, so it just has to be vetted more thoroughly than what maybe the Redway situation was.
Alrighty, moving on to the third question. We'll go back to you, Mr. Trumbull. What is your vision for the long-term success of the Lincoln Airport, and how would you ensure it continues to serve as a valuable economic asset for the community?
Well, the Lincoln Airport will be here for a long time. The struggle is the air service, but the airport has some really solid financial income sources, and we need to make the best use of the industrial park and the airside people over on the east side, the Duncan Aviation, Silverhawk, Atlantic, those folks. That's all rental property, and the airport needs to really make an effort to entice the best renters they can get and to lease their facilities for a market share rate. And I think with those things happening, the Lincoln Airport can be financially stable. And then we need to really, really do what we can to get air service.
All right, thank you. Moving on to Ms. Emlich. What is your vision for the long-term success of the Lincoln Airport, and how would you ensure it continues to serve as a valuable economic asset for the community?
I think that we need to make sure that we are making smart investments, that we have strong partnerships with our community, with our military, general aviation partners, and our industrial park. We've made sure that we are striving towards being an innovative transportation and business hub for Lincoln. There's a lot of work that we can do, as I mentioned, in industrial park so that we can bring in new industry, new businesses, support the tenants that are existing there, and making sure, again, that we are bringing in commercial air service because at the end of the day, we need to have air service that will bring in revenue to Lincoln and also support our airport for future growth.
All right, and here's a question that we received ahead of time. Both of you have experience in engineering or the airline industry, so can you tell us a little bit about that and how you would apply that experience in this role? We'll start with you, Ms. Enlick.
Sure. So I have some experience from my previous days as an airline customer service rep with Lufthansa Airlines. So that really was what gave me the bug for aviation, airlines, and all my life that carried through. I've studied industry trends, airline newspapers and articles, and really trying to keep up with what's out there. And that carried on into my experience on the board. So I have been on the board for the last year and a half working as a board member and have also learned a lot in my time there.
All right, thank you, Ms. Emlich. Now, Mr. Trumbull, can you tell us a little bit about your previous experience in engineering and how you would apply that to this role?
I spent 20 years designing airports and designing airport facilities and administrating FAA airport improvement grants. So I have a reasonably good understanding of how the grant process works, where the money flows from, how much money the sponsor, which is the airport authority, the FAA calls you a sponsor, has to come up with to match the federal dollars that are available for airside improvements. In my engineering endeavors, I've also been involved in meetings with airline executives, and I have an understanding of how they determine how to run a route, where they're going to serve what airports are going to service, and where those routes are going to go. And it's very detailed. I think one example is, I believe it was a Houston route that we had before COVID, and that route was running full, and the airline people came in and said, we're going to take that airplane away. We found a way to make a different route where we can make more money with the same airplane, and that was that. So there's a lot to it to keep abreast of the airline stuff. So that's it.
All right, Mr. Trumbull, we'll go back to you for this other question. What strategies do you believe are most effective for attracting and retaining commercial airlines in Lincoln, and how would you work to implement those strategies while on the board?
We're going to have to stay in constant contact with the airlines and keep reminding them of how many passengers that Lincoln has. Unfortunately, most of them go to Omaha right now. And it has to be somewhat competitive price-wise, but on the other side of the coin, Lincoln has some amenities that Omaha doesn't. You can go out to the Lincoln Airport, park your car, and probably be through the security and sitting on the airplane in 25, 30 minutes. Omaha, not so. And right now, I think it's a time maybe to really hammer that and take some advantage. Omaha is in the midst of a huge remodel expansion project there, and the parking and access arrangements to get in and out of the terminal are not so good. So we need to work with just any little advantage point we can find and be talking to airlines and try to get our airline service back. The unfortunate situation is the enplanements that we have today are probably 11% less than we had 10 years ago, and close to 40% less than what we had 20 years ago. That's a trend we really got to work on.
All right, thank you. Now, Ms. Emlich, what strategies do you believe are most effective for attracting and retaining commercial airlines in Lincoln, and how would you work to implement those strategies on the board?
I think we need to take a smart, data-driven approach, and which we've been doing. We've been working with our new air service development consultant who has conducted a feasibility study for us to see what markets are most feasible for Lincoln, what makes the most sense, evaluating our market data, looking at where passengers who live in Lincoln are traveling to when they're going up to Omaha, and evaluating what routes really make the most sense. And using that information partnered with the information we get from our community stakeholders in that Air Service Advisory Council, and making sure that we are working together to use that data to show that we can actually sustain a profitable market for the airlines. Our airport team, Rachel Barth and Dave Herring, have been working hard to build those relationships with the airlines at industry conferences and individual conversations that they're having. And it seems to be working. We just added, or United just added, a new flight to Denver, and that was an increase of 5% in seat capacity. And coming back to Lincoln, that's a positive economic impact of a roughly $3 million. So we need to keep working at it, and we also, I'm hopeful that within the next couple of months, we might have an announcement for potential new air service. So we're very much on the right track at this moment.
All right, thank you, Ms. Emlich. We'll go back to you for this final question. Would you support an increase to the taxes levied by the airport authority, and why?
I think that we have to be very cautious and make smart investments when we're looking at taxes. I want to make sure that we are being good stewards of public funds, and that we are only using taxes when absolutely necessary. So whenever if we do have to use taxes, we need to invest that into something where we can have a direct calculatable value, see that it's justified, and that there's an economic benefit to the community if we were to use them.
All right, thank you, Ms. Emlich. Now, Mr. Trumbull, would you support an increase to the taxes levied by the airport authority, and why?
Taxes are a hard question. I want to go back to a couple years ago. We had a referendum to allow the airport to use public dollars for subsidizing airline startup. I think that is a good plan, but it has to be very carefully used. I'm okay with using tax dollars for that, but back to the fact that when we set up a startup for a new route, it needs to be an established airline with a solid financial background, and the subsidies need to be set with a timeline that's stuck to and the maximum dollar amount. It has been used successfully one time prior to the Redway experience. As far as raising tax dollars go, I think the current levy, to my knowledge, is sufficient to handle what it's doing now. And what I would like to see those tax dollars be used exclusively are for major projects that come along every 20, 30, 40 years, like the terminal renovation and the 1836 runway, the 12,000-foot runway renovation. Those projects will require a local match to match the FAA grant money that would probably exceed what our normal budget would be.
All right, thank you. That's your time. That concludes our questions for this evening for the Airport Authority. Now, each candidate will have 1 minute for a closing statement where they can share any final thoughts or messages for voters as they make their decision in the upcoming election. We'll start with Mr. Trumbull.
I'm asking for
You might want that, maybe.
Don't ask me to stand up. I'm asking for your vote as the most qualified and experienced candidate. I'll represent the citizens of Lincoln with an educated, common sense view. My family's been in Lincoln since 1893. My vision for the Lincoln Airport is to provide the best possible service to the citizens of Lincoln with an absolute minimum taxation. Being a pilot with an engineering background, my airport design experience makes me uniquely qualified to be your choice for Lincoln Airport Authority. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Trumbull. Now, Ms. Emlich.
I want to thank you once again for the opportunity to be here and to speak with you about the airport. As a current board member, I've been working hard to make thoughtful and transparent decisions in the best interest of the airport. And we are making progress. I want to continue forward with adding commercial air service, maximizing the industrial park, and making sure that we are keeping our airport up to standard. So I ask that you consider me for May 6th. Thank you.